Hey there, posture guys and gals, and welcome back to the Correcting Common Posture Deviation series. On today's episode, we're going to be talking all about pelvic rotation, how to determine if you have it or not, what symptoms and limitations are associated with it, and of course, how to correct it. All right, so let's get right to it. So first of all, we want to determine if you have pelvic rotation. Well, if it's a pretty significant rotation, you might even be able to tell just from looking at yourself in the mirror, having a friend look at you or take a picture of you. From the front, it'll appear as if one hip is forward of the other, is closer to you in that mirror image or to your friend. So here my right hip is rotated forward, here my left hip is rotated forward. You can also see from the side, it would look kind of something like this, where again, just one hip is trailing in front of the other. Okay? That's if it's pretty significant. Now there's a few tests you can do to confirm what you may be seeing in the mirror or picture or what a friend may be seeing. One of them is just to go stand up against a wall, like so. You want your feet straight, about 6 inches apart, heels against the wall. And when you're standing here, just ask yourself, does it feel like one of your butt cheeks is touching the wall more, or one feels like it kind of wants to float off the wall? The side that feels like it's less touching the wall, or like it wants to float off, that's the hip that's rotated forward. Now, if standing against a wall like this causes you any kind of pain, you can do a similar test by laying down in the static back position. That's where you're on your back with your legs up at a 90-degree angle on a chair or a couch. And then just ask yourself that same question, but of course it'll be relative to how do your hips feel on the ground. Does one hip feel like it's heavier into the ground? Does one feel like it's lighter and kind of rotated up off the ground? If so, that lighter hip that feels more off the ground, that's going to be your rotated hip. And if you want to be really, really precise, there's another technique you can use in combination with either of those two tests. Basically what you do is you take two Bic pens, could be black, could be blue, it doesn't matter. You just want to make sure they're equal lengths. And put them on the front of your ASIS. These are those little bony protrusions right here on the front of the hips. And put them there, and you could, if you're standing, look down, or if you're in static back, kind of pick your head up and look, and see if one of them presents more forward than the other. If so, that's going to be the hip that's rotated forward. All right, so that's how to tell if you have pelvic rotation. Now, once you've determined whether or not you have it, and for the people who have, they want to know, okay, well, I have this, what's causing it? Well, pelvic rotation, or any type of rotation usually in the body, is a form of compensation. So it's compensating for something else in the body that is currently dysfunctional. Now, in my experience, there's a couple of causes, common dysfunctions that cause the compensation rotation. Wow, that's going to be hard to say 5 times fast. Compensating, rotation. I can't even do it. Anyways, the pelvic rotation, sorry about that, in my experience, the number one cause would be the lack of separation of the pelvis. And what I mean by that is our ability to flex one hip while simultaneously extending the other, which we have to do when we walk. I always tell people, ideally, a functional human being when we walk, our legs and our hips and our pelvis, how they work, should act like two scissors. The blades are side by side and they go like this. Well, let's say you lose maybe 10 to 15 degrees of that range of motion. Well, that motion has to come from somewhere. So instead of, if I'm walking straight towards the camera like this, and I lose some of that range of motion, well, now what my body will do is it'll rotate out of it and then take the other hip and rotate it up and forward. So now that hip or pelvic rotation is actually a compensation for my legs, my pelvic girdle basically not being able to separate, okay? Another one is everted or inverted feet, usually everted. So basically that means when your feet are turned out. Well, when your feet are turned out, if you were walking a straight line, you would basically be stubbing your toe every step. You'd constantly be tripping, falling. It would be near impossible to walk. So what your body does as a way to compensate is it'll kind of arc and swing the leg out. So what happens is a lot of the muscles in and around the hip and groin area, low back, QL, things like that, will hike up the hip and then swing it around so that your foot clears the ground and you don't constantly trip. So that's another one. And probably, last but certainly not least, would be an imbalance between your psoas muscles and your spinal erectors, as well as just any of your hip flexors and hip extensors. If they're not properly balanced, they'll definitely rotate your hips one way or the other, okay? So, and a lot of that is just caused by, our day-to-day habits, modern day lifestyles that encourage us to sit for long periods of times. You're working a car, one leg's on the rest pedal, the other's working, the gas and the brake. Habits that we do, maybe when we sit and cross one leg over, and we never cross the other one over. If we do, it feels really weird, so we have to go back to the same side that we're comfortable with. So things like that. As far as limitations, when you have that pelvic rotation, you'll notice, again, you won't be able to get that full separation. Think of almost like doing the splits, separation of the pelvis. So walking will be harder. You probably won't enjoy going for a jog or a run, because essentially what you're doing is when you're running, with each step, your hips are basically kind of doing this washing machine type of motion. And that's no wonder then you come back and your lower back, maybe your hips, maybe even your knees hurt. It's because instead of all the joints going in the same direction, if you're running straight, now your hips are shaking, your spine is basically, like I said, it's like taking your lower spine, and actually your whole spine, and putting it in the spin cycle. No wonder you come back and all those muscles are so sore and tight and everything. So those are some of the limitations that come with, there's many more, but that come with pelvic rotation. Now, as far as how to fix it, I've included, I think it's, gravity drop, hip crossover, stretch, cats and dogs, and hook line, gluteal contractions, knee pillow squeeze. So 5 exercises down below this video, which you can access. And you want to do those exercises, make sure to take them in order. And those are going to work all the muscles that are associated with those dysfunctions that I previously mentioned. So then ideally the dysfunctions are corrected, and then that rotation, which is a compensation for the dysfunctions, will then go away. It will no longer have a reason for being there, okay? So hopefully that makes sense, hopefully that helps. If you have any questions about what I said here in the video or any of the exercises, please leave a message in the comment section below, or you can call me, email me direct. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook. You can pretty much find me everywhere. Smoke signals, messenger pigeons, whatever your fancy is. Alright, anyways, thanks for joining me in today's video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, take care and keep moving.